Are you a UK tax non-resident and considering selling your UK property? If so, there are capital gains tax considerations. HMRC introduced non-resident capital gains tax from the 6th of April 2015 for non-residents who were disposing of residential land and property in the UK in response to a number of non-resident owners of property realising large gains and not paying any taxes on them. However, HMRC thought it would be a little bit cruel to say, well, if you sold your property on the 5th of April 2015, you would pay no capital gains tax, but if you sold it on the 6th of April 2015, you would pay capital gains tax on the full gain. And as a result, they introduced the options to pay, to calculate the gain in three ways. So the first way to calculate the gain is to do something called the rebasing method. What that means is you would rebase the value of the property as at the 6th of April 2015 and effectively ignore anything that happened prior to that, so purchase costs, costs of capital improvements that happened prior to that date, along with any period where it was your principal private residence would be ignored pre-April 15. In order to kind of get the rebased value, you should really be speaking to a RICS-approved surveyor in order to get an appropriate valuation, or alternatively you can ask HMRC to provide you with that value. The second way to calculate your gain is something called straight line time apportionment, and from that perspective what you would do is you would look at the gain across the full period of ownership and any applicable costs that could be offset, and then once you've worked out the gain across the full period, you would then apportion it to calculate only the gain from the 6th of April 2015 onwards. The final way of working out the gain is something called the whole gain, whole loss. It's usually used if people have realised a loss on the sale of their property, or alternatively maybe somebody who might be impacted by something called temporary non-residence. You can choose to use the best calculation for you to realise the smallest gain and to pay the smallest amount of tax. If you are a UK non-resident landlord and you are looking at selling your property, the other thing to be aware of is that you would need to report the disposal of the property within 60 days of the completion of conveyancing. If you don't, HMRC will charge you penalties, and you have to do this even if there is no capital gains tax to pay. If you're a non-resident, that report has to be done. If you have any capital gains tax liability, that has to be paid within the 60 days as well. And if you do need any support with filing your capital gains tax return and or calculating the gain, then please do let us know.